pool of knowledge around road traffic injury and its prevention in the future. Thank you very much.
We have some time for questions. Can I invite our speakers up to the panel? And we really would have about 10 minutes now for your questions and for discussion among the panelists. Dr. Sommer.
David, I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to read your paper. Is it really limited, the cost effectiveness, to mortality? Does it include hospitalization, morbidity, disabilities?
So the estimate that we made was based upon just the number that we could project based on the literature. We don't have literature from low-income countries about how many hospitalizations and non-lethal injuries these interventions prevent in this setting. In the Western world, we can project that, but we just don't know what you get from helmets in terms of hospitalizations. So that was a limitation. So we projected 10,000 prevented deaths, and then looking around the world for what people pay to lower a death risk, not a hospitalization risk, not a risk of paying money. That death risk has a value in each different economy, and that's where the 2.4 billion number came from. Other questions we've got in the back? Go ahead.
Yeah, very impressive. It's great to see what everybody's
Hello.
doing. Hi, guys.
Hi, good.
And it's really fantastic to see we're all together, particularly in the one special issue, and I'm thrilled that it's also free available, which I think is obviously where we're all headed with this. I was also pleased to see that there's a bit of alcohol in some of the programs. One of the big hot topics here is the issue of drugs and driving. One of these areas where policy is taken off in the absence of a lot of data. And I'd be interested to see if any of you have thought of addressing this issue in some of the countries. I know we've just got a little bit of funding to do as part of our Egypt project to look at drugs and people being admitted to one of the trauma centers in Cairo as part of our poverty training grant program. So just if anybody has come up in any of the issues at all.
Maybe I can take a first step. Hi, Gordon. Nice to see you. Gordon was my external examiner for my PhD. So great to see you again, Gordon. We haven't actually gone that step. I think it's a challenge even to get alcohol as a risk factor included in some countries. Even in some countries where it's obvious to us that it's a huge risk factor, and Russia, I think, is the one in point. The government just are not ready to go there yet, and so we'll work with some of these other risk factors before. I think that it is our wish that the project be extended beyond the 5 years, if Bloomberg is willing, and that additional risk factors be added. I think as we build relationships with the government and academics, we can maybe move in that direction. But it's a little early probably to add drugs at this stage.
Yeah, but I think it's important to get the alcohol data, because I think it's one thing. They do put their heads in the sand. I know in Russia, when we were there years ago, they were saying, oh, it's not a problem.
They still would.
And I think some simple studies with breathalyzers.
Yeah.
Another question? Yes?
Hi. Maybe Adnan would want to answer this. I was interested in you saying you're not looking at vehicle design and vehicle safety, but for example, in China, you have vehicles where the seatbelts have just been taken out or have not been installed prior to sales.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if there's a legal opportunity there in terms of addressing that dispute.
Hi, thanks for giving me the chance to answer this question. It is one of the issues that we're looking at when we're looking at legislation. We're not only focusing only on the behavior aspect of it and whether or not people are wearing or not wearing seatbelts, but we're challenging countries to also look at what other laws really affect the fact that individuals can do or don't wear their seatbelts. So modifications that are made in cars, import and manufacturing requirements to make sure that cars that come into the country have seatbelts, et cetera. So, I mean, it's a little bit beyond what we're focusing on right now, but as countries are doing their legislative reviews, we're challenging them to also include those, even though they can't address them right now.
Yeah, maybe if I can just add, Carrie, one of the things that I didn't talk about was the fact that WHO is just, in fact, in the final stages of conducting the second global status report on road safety, and we will publish that towards the end of the year. And we are trying to get a handle on exactly that. We have asked countries, and we have 181 countries that have completed the survey this time. We've asked about despecification of certain safety features from vehicles. So it'll be interesting to get a handle on that data as a start, and then to promote some of the standards that we know should be in place in countries.
Question, yes?
In terms of road safety, I heard a few you presented. I thought it was quite wonderful. I'm curious to know about road design, like the global road design, especially in African countries. Because, like, say Ghana, they just opened the highway, it's called First Highway, something like that. And like within the first 4 days, like 13 people died because it was put in the place. They didn't really get community input in terms of where it should go. So my question is, when you study countries, particularly Africa, what role does road design have in terms of road safety?
Do you want to answer? You want me to answer? Gail's deferring to me. Yes. What we do is we promote what is called the systems approach, which is looking at the issue both from a behavioral point of view and a vehicle point of view, and also infrastructure, and try to look at and promote issues across all three areas. However, the area of expertise that we generally have tend to be the public health domain, and so consequently what you're seeing here is much more public health approach, much more capacity building, etc. But the World Bank are on board in this project, and the World Bank have some standards and audits, etc., that they put in place when roads are built. However, in their defense, what happens is they give the loan to the country then puts it out for tender and takes a tender, and whichever the road builder is that is going to build the road may or may not conduct some of the safety audits and around issues like is it being built in the right place? Is it going to traverse a community, as has happened in many countries in Africa, as we well know? So it certainly is an area that we promote.
And I think probably what we can say is that sitting alongside the World Bank and some of the other development banks, the three organisations here ask questions about how can you allow such roads to be built that put people at great risk. And although we don't have the power to make the decisions, we certainly influence their thinking and their decision making. So I think we can see some changes over the next the past year, and I think it'll be stronger in the future.
We have time for one more question. Matu?
First of all, congratulations to all of you. If you all have hung in a field where there was no money, and there still isn't much money. And I hope you're making some inroads into getting funding, more funding for this, because it's a huge problem globally. A couple of the presentations I thought were very interesting. This issue about the front seatbelt. As soon as you get into a taxi in Delhi, the driver will tell you, please put on your seatbelt. Not because he cares for your safety. He doesn't care if you're sitting in the back and you get crushed, because the police will come after you. I suspect it's the same in Russia, because that's what works. And also, I'm interested to hear if that's common all over the world. And the other, with Vietnam, I think you said they don't wear the helmets at night. And what's the motivation for this? Is that because they don't think the police will catch them at night? Or what is
Yeah, I think it takes probably 20 years or so to move from a punitive paradigm to a safety paradigm. And if we look at Sweden and Australia and New Zealand, and you look at why people are conducting certain behaviors, they will say, because it will save my life, because it will save my child's life. But if you look at India and China, unfortunately at this point it's still stuck in that punitive phase, and we have to use it. We have to use it to shift it from that phase to that phase. But it's not peculiar there. In China, the particular speciality is that the taxi driver has the seatbelt clicked in behind him because he only has to wear it within the city limits. And so as he goes through the toll road, you'll see him then take it and pull it over, but he's only got half of it on him. The lap belt is not across him, so it's of no consequence anyway from a safety point of view. But from a fine point of view, that's what they see. In Egypt, they were novel enough when the new law came in to design and market T-shirts that had a seatbelt painted across them so that the police thought they were wearing seatbelts.
But just to add, Dr. Santosh, that the observations tend to indicate that the wearing rates go up first in the front seat because they are the most visible. And then you require a lot of effort to get the back seats done. And child restraint is a huge new issue. And increasingly, in some of these countries, it's also an issue of supply because, in fact, child restraints, appropriate car seats for children need to be supplied before you can mandate that they are utilized. So a lot of work. But I think we can learn a lot from other areas of child health in this instance in particular, of how do you get these types of safety mechanisms for families and how do you get them to adopt those?
And the answer for the... yes, that's what I'm about to answer. If you look at the data, you'll find that it's a different population group that's involved in the crashes at night, and it's usually the younger people, and it's usually because they don't want to mess up their hairstyle, it doesn't look cool, they've got nowhere to store it when they go into the drinking venue. There's all sorts of reasons, but it's usually about body image and... yeah, and there's no enforcement at night, but we've been able to shift that so that we've increased enforcement levels at night, and we're hoping to see some impact on that.
I'm just trying to visualize those child restraints and those 5-person families on motor scooters.
Not possible.
It's got to be a cartoon. Yes.
I have a picture of 7 on a motorcycle I can share with you.
Not in restraints.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is the end of the presentation, but it is the start of conversation. We will be allowed to have a reception now, and you can talk to our guests and continue the questions and comments for the several ongoing meetings that we're having out this afternoon. So reception right now, just through that door, and we thank you all for coming, and thank you to our guests.